let's just get going here. Video, blah blah blah. Okay. All right. We are good to go. Just watching a little bit of Bloomberg right now, seeing if there's anything really sticking out this morning. Upgrades, downgrades, stuff like that. Not really seeing much of anything at the moment. And now, of course, you could scan the internet as well. A lot of Epstein stuff. And yeah, a lot of Epstein stuff. Okay, well, let's get this show on the road. So, what we're going to do off the jump, like we usually do, is we're going to start off with our indices. Did a little research yesterday on my own strategies and felt like I was missing a piece of the puzzle, so I did add something to my overall strategy. And I saw a really nice video um, that I can't remember off the top of my head what the name of it was, but it gave a decent inside look at, ways to interpret price and volume when you get up to a level which is what you think is like resistance level or support level, and how to categorize it, because that's something that I would struggle with, where it's like, okay, I know this is a level of resistance. I have a position. Do I want to sell all of it? Do I want to sell half of it? Do I want to sell none of it and let it like play out? And what could I see in those situations to allow me to gain confidence or to lose confidence? And that is something that I was able to do by seeking out information. All right, QQQ. We talked about yesterday how if QQQ could find some rotation as XLF and XLV potentially would go down, I felt early on that's pretty much what happened. And it did actually happen in a lot of Fang names, and we'll cover that, where the tech names got like that boost. You know what I mean? And XLV was kind of hanging out near the lows, and then after that first jolt, it kind of just like traded sideways for a while, and then a little bit down. So you can see that QQQ never really got its legs here. So another situation where we had a little bit of a push and then a slow grind down into uh, the abyss of not really much price, right? I mean, we talked about it before, where once we start to get around here, we could be looking for signs of potential turnarounds, um, and there's no reason why it can't happen in any way, shape, or form. But it just makes more sense that it would happen when there's a lot more price and volume being traded in those areas. So, do I expect prices to shoot straight down here? Not necessarily. This is the fourth uh, red close in a row, and once again we are opening towards the lows again. It looks like. So once again, bears are set up pretty well. Um, but it's a situation where you always have to be looking for different clues. And when we get here, how will we be able to dictate if this is a level where there's going to be a lot of buying? Um, if this is a level where there's just nobody looking to go long at this point, or it's a spot there where sellers are still very intrigued by this move down, and that's something that I've figured out on smaller time frames now. On larger time frames, not so much, but you could assume that on larger time frames, when you get down here, it's a spot there where you could use session to session value to get a good understanding of what it looks like going forward. And that's what basically I use when I get to these levels, is session to session. And if one of the sessions opens up an opportunity, to potentially look for a turnaround, I'll take that opportunity. So we could see here the prior day close was right here. And then we can zoom in. Using our value. And you can see, not as convincing, but once again, we did move value lower, which is basically saying that the price from a day-to-day session, they're saying that the price of QQQ is essentially too expensive. And eventually, we will find a spot where buyers will step in and say, okay, this is a reasonable price now. I'm going to step in and I'm going to start buying. And usually those type of things happen when price ends up falling into a zone that had a lot of previous buying and selling in it, and this is why we use volume profile, right? So you can see that even on this note, like, I mean, look at this value. Look at this volume. Like, there's nothing here. Like, price could just completely just cut right through this for sure. And then when it gets down here, then you could maybe look for some friends to go along with. I think that's not a bad idea. So I mean, with this right here, you gotta be cautious of price really getting a little bit. Um, and I fall victim to this as well, which is like, oh well, looking long, looking long, looking long every day. Um, and I even looked long yesterday. Actually, I had a decent trade early long, and there were a lot of decent long plays early in the morning. Uh, but if you're looking for, if you're being patient, looking for, back burner trades off bounces and stuff like that, and holding a little bit longer, those seem to be, where you want to be. Definitely, since we lost the daily uptrend, I think the most important, the toughest thing I think in this environment, and these are the things that I've learned, and you try to take the good and the bad, and unfortunately, when you learn a bunch of stuff, it just all stuck, right? So one thing that I've always learned is that, when we're looking for weekly higher lows, the most opportune time to be looking for weekly higher lows is 4-hour oversold conditions. Sorry, excuse me. And you can see over the past, you know, 12, 16, 8, 20 or so, trading days, trading hours, we've been kind of hovering in this oversold territory. And on future charts, there was even like back burners. There was even like the first 4-hour oversold conditions in a really long time as a back burner trade, which didn't really fire off. So those are potentially the reasons why people are getting stuck in some of these situations, including myself looking long because you just worried about the turnaround and if there's any more meat on the bone. Um, and then at that point, you basically say to yourself, okay, well, now there's really not much more meat on the bone. I'm going to wait for a daily lower high to look short and then potentially, continue to more downside. That's the tough part is weighing those out. How much longer do you want to look short? Do you want to just be stubborn and say, okay, I'm going to wait till we get down here and just keep on looking short? There's nothing necessarily wrong with that. But you can see we're positioned very well for bears. Not a gap down, but they're trying. And this profile is not much of anything, just a random profile. A lot of sideways action yesterday. You could see that we were very, very choppy until like the very end of the day where we had like this little pullback, a little 5 minute lower high into a lower low, and then that was the day. So pretty choppy day yesterday, but value did move lower, and that needs to be respected. And if price, and these are all non-violated POCs as well. For the oh, actually maybe that's not true. All right, let's check out Spy. Spy really was teetering with its daily uptrend yesterday. Adjusted on, adjusted off. It looks very similar at this point. And we can see pretty similar here with a nice bear day. And you can see it's different from yesterday because, XLF and XLV weren't really hanging on as well, and then QQQ started to teeter as well. So, ended up being a situation where there was a little bit more market weakness in the day yesterday, which is really not that surprising since we talked about how, the Bears were actually set up even better yesterday than they were the day before based off of where we were in price and stuff like that. So, not surprising that Spy ended up doing what it did. And we can see the value here. And you can see actually Spy is hanging out a little bit better. And then we can say to ourselves, why is that happening? Which one is holding, which one is leading to, Spy being over the Valley area low, looking a little bit better than QQQ? Because it's not QQQ, that's for sure. You can find out by looking at some of the other names here. You can see that XLV had a pretty bearish day yesterday. A gap up. A gap up is for selling in this situation, which isn't a bad idea since we've gone up so fast. So over 7, 8 days in a row. So a gap up after all of that is usually a decent opportunity to go short. You could jump in just to get a good idea of what it looks like from a value perspective. Doesn't trade much pre-market, but you can see that it's over the POC. So XLV isn't necessarily weak. Set up right in the middle of value, which means that there's really no true direction from the session to session standpoint. And then we have XLF here, which is pretty similar as well, over the POC of yesterday's range. So once again, no real conclusive direction on the morning for dem bulls or bears. But we do know that QQQ has the biggest piece of the pie. Bitcoin is looks like it's going to be an inside bar pretty much unless it's a really big move. Huge move yesterday down. Buyers, stepped up to the plate right around the lows here. Again, showing that this region is potentially there's some strong buying here for sure. So this might get choppy for a while. And I'm sure names like Riot and etc. had the same sort of bounce. There was some news before we get into Fangs. There was some news with marijuana yesterday at MSOS. I talked about this one as like a longer term trade for me, that I was looking for an opportunity to potentially go long off of this name, and we could erase all this for now. That way we can see what's going on here, because it's getting a little dicey. Come on now. All right. So we have this little daily higher low set yesterday. One big move, and I got kind of lucky to see this, but I wasn't necessarily in love with how this move happened so fast. Um, I knew at some point they would be looking for some sort of hourly consolidation off of this move straight up. I mean, it literally straight up. Then we had a little bit of sideways action and then a little bit move up. So the spot there where hourly consolidation is potentially on the table, but at the same time, it's set up pretty well for bulls here. And this is exactly what I want to see. If you don't, mention how yesterday took place, this is exactly what I really wanted to see, which was after we broke bullish out of this, came back down, we back tested, we broke through with no follow through, bulls showed up, started to trade sideways a little bit, would have rather held here, but had the other bull break with no follow through. So tricky, great. Bull break, no follow through. Bull break, no follow through. Those are really tricky. And then you get to move up here. So gap up open on the table right now. Potential for bulls to get something going here, which is data driven. And look to get up here. So that's a play I'm looking at for today. Make sure you keep an eye on those bad boys for sure. Alright, let's jump into the Fang names here. See what's really pulling QQQ down. And right off the jump, you can see that Apple is one of those names. And you'll see with all these names that there was a jolt early. We'll see it on. We can see it on the 5 minute time frame here. On a lot of names, you could see that there was a nice little jolt early. We could show it right here. Right here, right on the open. Open, push down, can't break the overnight low, crack back over the open, and a real big push up. And then just a fade back down, a hold, and then we just chopped around all day. But you'll see that move in almost every name that we. So the bulls. So what do you say that is? I guess you could say that is bulls trying and failing, right? I mean that's what it seems like, because they did find the move and then they just kind of gave it all back. So that's potentially a reason to still not really be too intrigued with what the bulls are offering at the moment. Oh, go back to the 5 minute time frame. Value area low. Yesterday's POC lines right up with the prior day close, which is a confluence of levels. And just looking at the volume node there, I mean, like, the profile doesn't really give you much here, right? When a profile is like this, you could call it somewhat of a D profile, but I think a D profile is a little bit better when it's more towards the middle of the profile, a little bit more rounded. This just has a lot of volume everywhere. So for me, it just looks like there was just a choppy day and really no reason to find a particular level within this volume to say, hey, this one sticks out more than the others, right? If you look at yesterday, that's a little bit different, right? You could clearly see that there's a lot of peaks and a lot of valleys here, and this level right here, makes a lot of sense of a level that you'd want to watch out for, and it has the sideways trading that led to a big push down that can allow you to say to yourself, okay, well, on the 5 minute time frame, this could be a level where there are bears willing to keep their positions alive, and there might be some strong selling at these levels um, if we get back up. So these are something that you want to watch out for, and you can see the difference between these two profiles. But we can see here, gap down open. Apple not looking great this morning. There is data at 8:15 that could change things, or it could just make things go really south, which we know is completely on the table because there's really not a lot of. If you could look at Apple from on the daily standpoint, I mean, you can look and see here. I mean, there's really not much resistance on the way up. We talked about maybe this level here, but this level here is just essentially a high. Even when we got back up here, there really wasn't much going on. So there's a little bit here, but nothing crazy. I'd say this level right here, and we could even say, okay, well, this looks like a level where there might have been a lot of value, a lot of peak, a lot of all that fun stuff, and we could just do this real fast just for an example and see if it lines up. And we can make sure that we only get, that's the start of it right there. And you can see that, yeah, it just, this whole entire region pretty much. But you can see this level here kind of lines up with all of this. But you can see how much it fades off once it gets above that. I'm not going to be trading Apple, but it's intriguing. So we know Apple's weak. Let's take a look at Amazon. Google had a pretty good day yesterday. I wonder if it held up. So Amazon had the same thing, and it was a pretty nice setup for bulls too, in the sense where if you could have another green day, if this stayed green and then you had another green day, it could be a good opportunity to mark a daily high or low. But and we were in a value, an area of value here. It's a spot where you can see where the big node is right here, which is right around the POC. This was the close. And then we go to the 5 minute time frame and we can see exactly what happened yesterday. And like we talked about, the Bulls really tried yesterday. We'll show it again here. Can I move that in the visual order, send it back? Okay, yeah, we send it back and you can see, and we'll just take it off, it's easier that way. Oh, well, how'd that get down there? Okay. Right off the jump here, same thing. Right, 9:30. Open, push down, pass back over the open, and then zip right up. And this one actually was set up pretty well too, because you could see that it got, it back test the POC, tried to get over the high of the day and just failed. Back over to the POC. So you can see that there were some bulls really, really trying to use this level as a support level, right? There was definitely some buying here. And then we got up again, failed. So there was buying here and selling pressure here for sure. One, two, three wicks. The fourth. After this one, flutter down. And could you be aggressive and just buy the break here? Sure, but where does your stop go? You know what I mean? You're just gonna like a makeshift stop of, hey, I'm just gonna put it over the over the valley area high. I mean, that's an okay idea. It's not the worst idea in the world, but the problem with doing that is that if it breaks that level, are you really wrong about the trade? You know what I mean? The answer is no. And that's something that I've dealt with as well, where I want to get like the best price. I want to get the best return on my investment with these plays. Um, but you have to be a little bit picky, right? So the play is either you top fish this level, knowing that there's selling here, which is sort of dangerous because once again you're over the POC, you're over the value area high. There's probably weaker names to play, but the setup is okay. You know what I mean? You can't just run from every setup. That's something that I'm also working on. Is you just don't want to run from every setup. This is a spot here where you can say, well, you know what? Value moved price lower previous day, and I see that they're selling here, and I'm still not convinced that the bulls have it yet because I know that no real change happens until the regular trading hours high is broken for a bull standpoint. So I'm going to take a shot here, and you could top fish this level here, which once again, somewhat dangerous, but it makes sense. Definitely if you're looking for an hourly lower high. Then when it comes down here, what do you play off of? Do you play off the POC or do you have to play off the valley area high? Well, that's another good question. And how do you approach it, right? I mean, the case would be made that the level is the POC, right? This is the level that was being essentially blocked, uh, used as a support level. So when you break it, you could look for that level to be resistance now. And you could see that it did happen here, and it got back above, and then it failed. So how do you get over that? That's a really good question. It's a really good question. Um, the main question is how do you get into trades, right? Because technically, we did reject here, but we didn't stair step down. It's still a stair step. So this is an inside bar, bull break. So if you're patient and you're waiting for a stair step, it's a spot here where once again, sometimes things just don't work out that well. Like if this broke bearish here, you don't necessarily love where your stop's going. It's a little bit of risk here. I guess it's not that big of a deal. But are you getting 2 to 1 down here, right? Because this would be like the next level where you think that there would be, maybe the lows, the value, you know what I mean? Like the lows of the day. And or the open. The open is probably the spot where you want to be looking. And that's a 1.5 to 1. So it's not the worst in the world, but once again you want to be cautious of that. This one's a little bit different if you actually wait for the stair step to the open, and that's a 4 to 1, right? So big difference there. But yeah, I have a problem sometimes with being a little bit too cute because I'm just like, this is the level. If this level breaks, then I'm thinking that they're going to go where? Well, they're probably going to go ahead and test the value area high again. And then they fail there. So, but this was the level, right? This was the level that you wanted bears to, turn into resistance. And it just doesn't always happen that way. Like they tried, they failed, but then they recovered. So it's pretty tough. Like it can be very frustrating in those scenarios, right? Because you don't want to put your stop way up here. It's just not the case, right? You don't want to do that. And you can say, well, Paul, you know, if you're not on the 5 minute time frame, you're probably not in love. You're probably not getting the stair step. And we could go ahead and look at the 2 minute time frame. And I would say you're probably right. So here's a spot where you get a bull flag, so you're not interested. You get a rejection here. And this is definitely a spot where you see a big enough rejection here to look for the a lower high compared to this level. And I mean, if you're just disciplined enough to not take an early play, you don't necessarily fall victim to getting in too early, right? Because it's a stair step up, and then you're like, okay, well, they're above it now. I don't love it. I need to see them crack below it again. Crack below, rejection. Now you have the EMA above here, and then maybe you could the break of this candle. Put your step above this level because that's the level. I mean, you can put your step above here, but obviously you probably want it over here. And then you're looking to get down to the open, and that's 3 to 1. So it's things like that. It really is. I really wouldn't know any other way to navigate past that, or maybe you just get stopped out. But this is definitely and well, I mean, and here's the thing. There's another thing you could do too, and this actually makes a lot of sense. That don't look at these as levels. Look at them as zones, right? So let's see if this works out. So let's say this level is holding here, and then we get back down here and we trade one, two, three, basically 3 to 4 can. I mean, you could say this one too. This is kind of a back test. So let's say like these candles here, right? So there you go. There's your 5 minute zone. Instead of just using this level here, you're using a 5 minute zone. So, and this is why I like using this better instead of just a level, because levels get you in trouble. Levels try to make you very specific and very fancy. Perfectionist. Okay. So now what? All right. Well, you have which level is more important here now? The answer is that they're all important. The POC from the prior day is important. This structure is important. The value area high of previous day is important. Those are all important levels. Obviously, you don't want to get too stuck into the whole why. When price is over the POC, that means that uh, people think that it's essentially, you know, uh, still worth more, and it should be valued higher. Like, yeah, sure, we get that, but if you overthink that situation, you're gonna find yourself into some trouble. So instead of working into all this, you could basically do, all right, I'm in on a test of the POC because we know, or you could scale in. But let's say you just wanted to get in and then be done with it. And then you want to put your stop above the structure here. Maybe just above this candle. And then where do you want to get to? You want to get to the open. And at that point it's 2.5 to 1, which is well worth, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that trade. So using this, is where you want to be. And you could say, well, I wanted to get back into here. That's fine as well, but at the same time, maybe you're a little bit more of a stickler, right? Like on the 5 minute chart, maybe you just use a stair step. You're being patient. You see this, you're like, okay, maybe I missed a trade, but use a stair step and then you get in there. That's fine. If you're on the 2 minute time frame for entries, this looks like a little bit of a 2 minute descending wedge. You get up here. You don't want to get in here bull flag, so then you get here and at the spot here where once again, like if this hits here and it pulls back like this, you might think that you missed a trade here. You know what I mean? Like there's a good chance that you might be thinking, all right, well, lower high here. I might miss the trade, but once again, it's the same scenario where it's like, okay, like I'm just gonna get in on the next lower high here, right? And that's a spot there where if it dumps down here, then you probably want to put your stop above here, right? Because that's where the the rejection happened. Even though you would love it to be up here, you're just putting on too much risk. So if you get stopped out, then you could reevaluate and do it up here. But once again, if you're patient here again, now you're back in here. And this is a spot where you're like, okay, well, this is where my box is, and I'm going to take my shot here anyways. And one thing that the thing I talked about yesterday, which was once again using the developing POC as a way to gauge if volume and the profile in general are meeting the requirements. So here's a great example of how price came down here and the POC, the developing POC, wasn't going down with it, right? So that tells you that this is not a case of euphoric buyers or euphoric bears or bears just looking to pile in. This is more of a indication that there are no more buyers here. Okay, because if this was a case of bears essentially being ecstatic about getting in this in Amazon at this point, this would be moving slowly down with the price, which would kind of give you an idea of, okay, good. If I'm in this position, I'm feeling pretty confident about this position. So on the way up, you kind of want it to be the same thing. And you can see in this scenario here, it really didn't give you much. The POC just held up here. So it's a spot here where you could say to yourself, well, POC is still above as a bear, and this whole move up here isn't being justified. And once again, there's still a situation where you're coming up against an area where we just saw resistance turned in a decent try here, two times over, right? Bulls try to step in, bears end up winning the battle. Price cut through that level, and then just as your basic TA goes, you know that this area right here is going to be one that is going to be intriguing. And you don't want to forget about the longer term time frames as well. Like this is probably a 15-minute lower high, 15-minute hourly lower high potentially. Let's take a look, and we're going to clear it all out. Yeah, right. So 15-minute chart here. Get the bull move up. You get the battle here. If you're watching on smaller time frames, you know that there's a battle here. The bears win. What do you look for on the way up here? Well, most likely scenario after this big push down is going to be a 15-minute lower high compared to this level here. Anything above, anything below this level here is going to be a 15-minute lower high. Where would you want to be looking for that 15-minute lower high? Well, probably where all the battling just went down, which is like right around here, right? So if you have the longer term time frame, sometimes you don't even have to look at the smaller time frames. Just use the 15-minute chart. Use a 15-minute stair step chart here. And it becomes not that bad of a situation where you get in on the break of this candle. You put your stop at the high of the candle. And you look to get back to the open. You get, maybe sell some here at the low. That's fine. That's 2 to 1. You get back to the open. Bingo. That's 2.8. So you don't have to necessarily zoom in. for clues, because when you zoom in for clues, things get a little bit difficult. And you can see just kind of teetered around here. Let's get the value back up here. And we can make these levels. But we don't, I mean, it's funny that the POC is actually right here for today. But we know that this is the level. This is a more important level to me than actually the POC of the range. And, once again, using value to dictate things is fine, but sometimes other levels seem to be a little bit more important. And there we go. So I did have the notes down for it. So when coming into a resistance, do we have volume increase, debug moving with price, and being up towards the top of the move? Hmm. So the fact that the POC never came down from here meant that the move down wasn't validated, meaning that you go look for a lower high. Amazon with a gap down. So we have two gap downs right now. Google had a good day yesterday. Google's looking strong. I talked about how I really liked Google. I liked Google yesterday. Today is actually a good day to look for Google long, in my opinion. If you feel like being bullish, I'll go over the reasons why. Let's go into the profile here. Value area high. POC, and then the value area low. Okay. And we could see even what happened yesterday. The same thing, right? On the open yesterday. So we looked at Apple, we looked at Amazon, right? What did we see? We saw a big push open, and then bears kind of take over. More so, bulls fade, right? They just didn't have enough mustard, and the bears slowly took over. And with Google, it's a different story, right? You had the same morning, right? Push down, failure, crack back over the open, and then go. Then we traded sideways here. Okay? Move up. A lot of the names failed up here. Google moved up. Sideways again. This is the level here. As long as this level holds, bulls are in full control. Comes back down, holds here. Comes back up again. Corrects this level, but holds this level. This is a pretty important level if you're, on the intraday. But you can see overall, the bulls did a much better job, and they moved value higher. Find me another name that moved value higher on yesterday's name. That's tech. We'll go through the rest of them, but Google is definitely one to be on a watch list today if you are looking long here. And now we kind of meet a lot of the criterias, right, for what we want to be looking for when looking long on longer term time frames. Okay? So for example, with Google now, let's clean this up a little bit. We're looking for most likely scenario here, right? Anything above this level down here is going to be a daily high or low, right? That's pretty simplistic, pretty clear chart in my opinion. So when looking for a daily high or low, when we use profile, we want the edge to be in our favor as much as possible, which would mean you want to be trading with value. When trading with value, you want to have the session to session be moving upward the previous day. And on names like Apple and Amazon, you're just not finding that. On Google, we just showed you that we did move value higher previous day. So now we have a daily uptrend. We're looking for a daily higher low, most likely scenario. We are we want to trade with value. Now we have a condition on the open this morning where the previous day we traded with value. Okay, so those are great. Now, where are we trading compared to value this morning? You can see that we're also positioned pretty well. We're over the POC of yesterday's range, okay, which is once again the fairest price to do business. So if we're over the POC, bulls are positioned slightly better than bears. Obviously, a gap up would be a little bit more of a thumbs up for bulls. Definitely when trying to seek out a daily high or low. But it is a spot where bulls are absolutely set up well for a play to set a daily high or low and then continue to move price higher. Now, one thing you have to be worried about though is if you're looking for a daily high or low, you want to know how much we retraced. And from this level here, we didn't even retrace 50%, which means that there's a decent chance that we can get back up here, right? More than a 50-50 shot that we could potentially get back up here and then potentially move price even higher. So that's something that is definitely on the table for today. And just a cherry on top is that we did close above the EMA 12. So Google is my lead bull this morning and a position that I'm probably going to look to take. And you say, hey, well, Paul, how do you plan on getting into that trade? Well, as long as this data doesn't completely mess up the scenario, which it might, unfortunately, I'd be looking at the open. I'd be looking to see if we can get back to the POC of prior day's range. If not, crack back over the open, and then I'm in with my stop underneath the lows and probably underneath the POC. If it's a kind of a gap and go, which I'm not really thinking it's going to be, because once again, we're still opening in value. It's a less likely chance of it being a gap and go. It is a spot where once again I can look to potentially just see that and look to just jump in and put my stop underneath the value area low or something in that nature, knowing that it's going to be a swing like position and not forgetting that it's a daily high or low we're looking for and not just a day trade. So Google's lead bull. Inside bar on Meta. That was definitely most likely scenario going into yesterday because man, that candle was big. So really no reason to whip up a profile here. I mean, we know that it was sideways. On inside days, you can't really gain much. I mean, it kind of looks like a D profile, but it is a spot here where it was just pretty much choppy all day. I will line up the profile, but I don't think it's of anything significance here. You just wait for the bull break or the bear break or the back test. Nvidia, look at, oh, jeez, it's actually up pre-market. This was my vehicle yesterday that I used As you can see, we had this. I missed the short there. I wish I would have grabbed the short as well. This one's all kind of. Jeez. You can look at the profile here. I mean, that thing is all over the place. But you can see yesterday, same thing. Push back down, pass over the open. I grabbed that, and then I rode it all the way to the alternative POC on this daily here. But I didn't grab the short. Should have grabbed the short, knowing we're looking for an hourly lower high. And then this level ended up being a level of where there's strong buyers here, which could have definitely been an opportunity here to bottom fish for a little scalp. And as you can see now, we're kind of teetering, but I'm not going to trade this one this morning. If anything, I think that this is a good opportunity to go bearish in my opinion. Because the spot here where you get the hold here, you cut through here, you crack it. This could be a spot where we back test this level really fast and then continue to push price down. I think that could definitely be on the table, but Tesla. I made some small trades on Tesla. They didn't work out too well. It was super weak yesterday. I don't even know why I was sometimes looking bull. Makes no sense. I should have just been looking at Google if I'm looking for bull plays. We could see curious to see how the area. I think this stock actually opened weak if I recall. Yeah, it's funny that all the other stocks opened strong and Tesla just opened weak. See that? So this one was a pop above. Can't get to the valley area. Low, which was up here. Crack back over the open. Falls back into this structure. Bears hold the structure on a little tiny back test. Push price down. Can't get to the valley to the alternative POC. Start to move back up. And slowly, 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 just grinding. Nothing doesn't look strong at all. And then just kind of gives it back at the end of the day. Yeah, I'm not even sure what I was looking at here. I was looking for price to get back up here. That's what I was kind of looking at here. Because I figured it didn't get to the POC. So with a little bit of a push, we can get back up here. But I don't like that at all. I mean, stair step down. I mean, I guess the play could have been to play the 5 minute stair step down, put your stop under here, and try to get a little bit of a scalp under it, but just very, very choppy. Not really sure what the heck I was looking at there. That's something that I have to clean up. As of how we're opening today, it's opening right at the POC from yesterday's range. Right in the middle of this chop. Microsoft. Still stuck in this daily sideways range. We had a daily inside bar. This is very similar to Meta. I believe it was Meta. And we're going to leave it as it is, knowing that it's a daily inside bar. If you want to play a daily inside bar, you know how to do it. End of story. Netflix Daily Inside Bar. So those are FANG names. We know that Google is just an absolute standout. So Google is definitely going to stay on the menu for today. We'll see how MSOS is doing because we want to keep an eye on that today. The volume profile works a lot better with names that have a lot of liquidity. Unfortunately, MSOS doesn't have that liquidity per se, but with that being said, it's set up really nicely, and it's something I'm going to take a crack at. Went over Nvidia, DraftKings here. I mean, I don't even know why I have DraftKings on the list still, but just keeping an eye on it. I thought this had an opportunity to get back over here, hold this level, and go up. It failed here and then just dropped like it was hot. This could have been a great short, but still have to work a little bit better at understanding when to be aggressive and when to be conservative. And I think a gap underneath an important level in a daily downtrend is a really good opportunity for a short, and definitely with no support. Melly, I'm continuing to hope this sucker goes right down here, where I'd be looking for at least a bounce, some sort of daily bounce there. Lily continuing to just climb, which at this point is somewhat bananas here. So I had high, high, low, high, low. So I mean, technically, it's still an EQ until it breaks this level here. So, but it's had a pretty strong couple days. CCJ, it's got a lot going on here. I don't like this. It kind of looks like a little bit of capitulation here. Don't love that. PLTR, very weak. Same thing as DraftKings. Should have been able to take advantage of that short. Pen. At this point, if it retests this level here, we'll take a look at it. LCID just falling off a cliff at this point. Instacart. I've been really waiting for Instacart to get above this level. It just can't get it can't get above it. It's so funny. Ford. We're looking at Ford at this level here. Should have known that this was an area of strong sellers because we had the back test here and then the big drop down. But the thing that scared me was that we did set this little bull flag before we came back up here. So when something like that happens, you don't really want to jump right in front of it. You'd rather it just kind of shoot straight up, which it did not. And the bear still, got the job done, which is impressive, which gives this level a lot of credit. And if the bulls can get over this level, then you could assume that it's going to get up here. Rivian. I think I was looking for Rivian for a long today as well. Let's see. I believe so. Ah, darn it. That was the gap fill. See how we bounce off of the POC. I made a trade in this one yesterday as well. Once we broke down out of the alternative POC and cracked back over, I made a trade. I can zoom in here. Wasn't the best trade in the world, but I got in on the pass back over, shoved my stop underneath the low here, because we also had the gap fill as well, and I ended up selling right around here. Wasn't sure if I should have held on or not, but probably should have. But I probably would have been stopped out. Let me see here. 16. Yeah, I might have gotten stopped out here. But at the end of the day, I would have definitely been stopped. So sideways up, put my stop under here, up, nothing here, up there. I would have gotten stopped out right around here. So I would have gotten another 16 cents or so. So now let's get this bad boy running. So we want to see if it meets the same requirements as Google does, right? All right. So let's check out first. Let's see if value moved higher yesterday. Let's take off this trade keeper. Did value move higher or lower yesterday? All right, value still moved lower yesterday. So we don't like it as much as we like Google. Google me. Google me softly. So we do not like here's a great example down here of using I thought this was okay, yeah. Like you see how we were pushing down here with volume, okay? And you can see the Deepak was validating price, right? Just stair step down. So you could say that bears were loving the position here. And this would be a case where you could say to yourself, okay, well, as a bear, I'm going to hold on to my position a little bit longer and reevaluate and not look to get out of your position until that potentially changes, right? So when you see this, then you're a little bit worried. Um, and it's a spot where you obviously don't love this. So if you're down here, your stop's probably around up here anyways, right? So, but it's a spot here where when you learn that we still rejected from this level here, it now means that this was strong sellers. This wasn't a lack of buyers, in my opinion. Sorry, this wasn't a lack of shorts here. This was strong buying in this situation because, and this was the kind of tool I was looking for because there'd be too many times where I would be at these levels and I'd be like, okay, well, I can have a good gauge of how strong this level can be, but is there anything else that could help guide me in these scenarios that could give me a little bit more confidence to hold positions, or to know if it's slightly weighted towards, it being, in this example, you know, strong sellers, or is it a lack of sellers? Because if this line was up here and price was down here and it wasn't moving down like it was, that would tell me that this isn't strong sellers. That would just tell me that there's just a lack of buyers, which means that you don't love it as much, right? Which means that as soon as we get to a level where there is going to be, potential some interest, let's say on our alternative POC on a daily time frame or gap fill, okay, you could look for a bottom fish at that level. So you could see that my trade, in theory, was probably a bad trade because I did bottom fish these levels here after I saw the push down, the back over, and then the whole of this level. But at the time, this was just strong sellers met, you know, strong buyers, and strong buyers ended up winning that battle. And that's what that was. And you could say, well, damn, Paul, what would give you an indication that there would be strong buyers there? Well, depending on the time frame helps, right? Daily time frame, right? This level here, daily time frame, we got back over it. We're back testing it for the first time. Bulls are going to try to turn this into support. Where they want to do that, they'd want to do that at the fairest price to value within the structure, which is the POC, and even a gap fill. It's a combo, so that makes a good spot to look long, right? But bears were really gunning for it here, it looks like. So, with that being said, we now know that this area right here is an area that's probably being defended by bulls. So if we come back to this area, there might be a battle here. And if we don't come back to the area, well, this was a good indicator that there was some buying here. And if we were set up a little bit better on the day, maybe we could be a little bit more aggressive, but currently we're under the POC. So yeah, I would have loved for value to move higher previous day, but it makes sense why it didn't, because the Bears were in control of this day and they just met. Like we could just do an analogy of any, like, a UFC champion for a long time, right? Let's say Rich Franklin, right? Back in the day, Rich Franklin was a really good champion. And then Anderson Silva just showed up one day and just beat the snot out of him, and then was just like the goat of all time, right? Essentially, it's like that if you need an analogy, where Rich Franklin was crushing everybody, and everybody was on board, and then Anderson Silva came up and just said, "All right, well, Bulls are stepping in, even though the Bears are in essentially full control, where volume, okay, and price were both validating this move down. So when you have volume and price validating the move down and it runs into a wall and you get a reaction like this, that should tell you that this should be an area to look for a battle, to maybe look long off of, and you have the reasoning for it. You could explain it to somebody literally like a book. And if you can explain it to somebody, that means it works, right? For the most part. If it makes sense, you could develop a strategy around it. And that's what this is. So if we get back here, I would be interested in potentially a long. knowing, and once again we can clear all this out, knowing that we are just looking for a daily higher low in a sense. I mean, this is a sideways range that broke bear on a gap down, but you could still see that we're looking for a higher low compared to this level right here. The 17 and change level. What level is that? 1775. If that level breaks, well, then it's probably, not always, if this level breaks, not a bad level to top fish and look to go lower. But identifying those levels is probably the most important thing in my book. Looks like we had a bearish reaction potentially to the. Let's look. Yep, bear reaction at the moment. To, I believe, ADP. So tech still weak. XLV trying to hold on here. XLF not looking that bad. So it's clear that these two are holding up SPY. And what's bringing down SPY? It's QQQ. So today is one of those days where it's like, again, is SPY is SPY going to be pulled down by um, QQQ, and is XLV and XLF going to join Team Bear, or is QQQ going to join Team Bull? That's the real question. But we do know that bulls hate the fact that QQQ is leading the way down. Bulls want QQQ leading the way up. So as a market bull, as an overall market bull, you're not happy that QQQ is the weakest here. You want QQQ to be leading the way up. That's when you're at your. That's when you're feeling your best. So the fact that tech is going down again is not great. All right, well, that's gonna be it for me. Hopefully that helped. I'll let you guys know how I do today with this new developing POC. I've used it before, but I've always used it with the DPOC, the DVAL, the DVAC, and I'm just going to be using the developing POC. And now I have a better understanding of why I'm using it. Um, and where can I go ahead and solidify some of those things? That's what I was really looking for, was how can I stay in positions longer? How can I give some sort of definition to a certain level? And I think that if you go back to that Rivian explanation, that is a really, really good way to identify important levels. And if it was, and like I said, my trade was probably not. I guess I got pretty lucky. My trade wasn't a great trade. I just happened to be one of the, you know, uh, buyers that happened to jump in on that scenario. My identifying strong levels was very good, right? Like, it was a level that I thought was a strong level, and that's why I played it off of it. But based off of how everything else was looking, and what some of my indicators were telling me at the spot there, I got somewhat lucky going against the green. Just hopping in there without having a little bit more wind at my back. That's pretty much what it was. I like hopped into it knowing not knowing, like, I was basically sailing into the wind, and our motor was just so strong that we just kind of was able to just you know slice right through that bad boy. And that's really what happened. So I think that it's a pretty lucky trade. Things I did good, things I did bad, but overall could have been a better setup. All right. Well, that's going to do it. Hope you had a good day. Take care. Bye bye.